this is the Journey Tell podcast, and I'm your host, Sean Donati. I believe life is about the journey, not the destination. To find the journey in every step of the road, the highs and lows, the twists and turns, the ups and downs. It's in those moments that really makes life so beautiful. Our guest today has a journey of her own. Jessica Yatrofsky is a New York City-based photographer. She's a filmmaker. She's an author. She's known for work that's exploring body politics, beauty, and gender. Please help me welcome Jessica to the show. Jessica, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me.
You know what? Like, that was just a long list of things I felt like that you juggle. Is there one particular project of yours, or one particular hat, if you will, that's your baby, that's your passion?
I feel like a through line of all of my work is that I'm an activist. I'm an artist, and all art is a form of activism. I truly believe that. And I think that, I consider myself a multidisciplinary artist, and they call that like multi-hyphenate now. And they're coming up with more crazy ways of describing what it is we do. But I've always firmly believed that with whatever creative endeavor I take on, it's the medium that dictates the idea that dictates the medium that I'm going to work in. Even though I'm primarily known for my film and photographic work and my writing, I'm actually an artist that was formally trained in painting and sculpture at a young age. So I kind of, hopped around to all the different mediums. And that's why I say the idea dictates the medium. And then I just work in that medium to express what I'd like to express.
How do you find your inspiration?
Oh, well, one of my main sources of inspiration is really cinema. I love film. I've always loved film since I was a child. Even though when I moved back to New York, or back to the East Coast, I should say, I didn't have a television for a really long time, which is like a really snobby thing. New Yorkers say, like, I don't have a television. Well, I love TV. It's just that when I first moved back to New York, I was so busy. I didn't have a television. I wasn't able to sit down and watch all of the movies and shows and things like that. But when I was really young, I had begged my parents for a TV, like in my bedroom, which was like a big no-no. And they finally let me have this television. And I was just obsessed with watching like Nick at Night. And I would watch all the old black and white shows like Car 54, Where Are You? And like the Patty Duke Show and the Twilight Zone. So I always thought cinema was, and that's not necessarily considered cinema, but just television in general. I would find that those storylines and just like cinema verite, like it would take me into like a different space. And also painting was always very inspiring to me as a young person. I used to tell my mom, I want to move to New York City and become Picasso, which is, I don't want to be Picasso now. I'd rather be like a Louis Bourgeois or, George O'Keeffe. Like I have other role models now.
That's interesting that you talk about your childhood. At what age was it when you felt like, okay, I have a unique gift here, and let me explore this?
Wow, I think you would have to ask my parents, but as far back as I can remember, I loved drawing and painting, but most kids did, I think, because we start with crayons and then finger paints and all of that. But I just knew that I was obsessed with recording the world. And contrary to popular belief, I didn't even get into photography until much later on in college. I got rejected from taking photography classes in high school because they're hard to get into because the supplies are expensive. And so I just stuck with painting and, kept studying painting through high school and drawing and sculpture even. And I remember there was this point where when I would have to say maybe 7, 8, 9, my father gave me a video camera. So not a camera, but a video camera. And he used to tell me, you have a really good eye. You have a great eye. Why don't you, record the family? So I'm not in a lot of our home videos because I'm doing the recording. And he was somebody that really kept me, he kind of pointed out and threw into sharp relief for me that I had some type of talent or way that I looked at the world that was worth exploring. So without really like pushing me directly in any, direction, he just simply offered me a tool. And when it came to my mother, she just knew I really liked to be creative and always doing things. I don't know do you remember the magazine Highlights when we were kids?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So it was like a lot of building and assembling things. So she just kept me busy with that stuff. But again, they didn't really direct me or tell me what or what not to do. They just recognized that these were the things that I was interested in, and let me continue being my weird little self locked in my bedroom, creating art, painting, drawing, and also, I mean, I played the piano when I was younger. So what I would consider more like introverted activities, but that really helped me create this sort of inner creativity, like these inner imaginative spaces that I was able to occupy. And then, as I got older, felt like, oh, I had spent so much time building this skill set. I didn't even realize what I was doing, but what I was working on was observing.
Hmm. Wow. Isn't that interesting how things that we do in our childhood really truthfully does prepare you in adulthood? And a lot of times you really don't realize that until you are an adult and you're like, wow, now I know why this happened. And then that
Yeah.
happened because it led me to this.
Mm-hmm. Most definitely. I think that, as a woman, I would say too, and I have to bring in my gender because
Yeah.
I feel like growing up, women are sort of conditioned to kind of like hang back, even be invisible as possible, not speak out, at least the generation that that I'm part of. When I was much younger, it wasn't encouraged to speak out or speak up or interrupt, or even if I knew the right answer to a question in class, I wouldn't even raise my hands, and I would witness like the boys would be, shouting out the answers. And I think that what I realized that I had a ability just because of how we've been socially constructed, that I was able to take the role as an observer and observed what was going on around me. And that's why I kind of maintain this idea that with artists, particularly female photographers, we kind of naturally have this like documentary sensibility about us because we've been able to blend in or even be invisible at times where we can just observe, we can record, we can document. And I actually think that women are the great archivists. They're the great like arbiters of history in so many ways.
Absolutely. Speaking of women, I know feminism in art is a big part of your platform. Tell us why this is important to you.
Well, first of all, I believe in equality and I believe in equity. And I think that being engaged with other women and other groups of people that have been systematically just left out of the equation, specifically when it comes to art, is something that I feel like was why I launched a feminist collective called New York Femme Factory. And I traveled to different cities, different parts of the country, and even different parts of the world. And I was hosting these poetry readings where I would invite people from the community, from that community, whatever city I was in, to come and read their work. And what was really interesting about that is if you've ever been to a town hall, I mean, they're really enlightening. If you've ever been to a town hall with women, that a diverse group of women, it's
very powerful.
Yeah, it's very powerful. And you're like, wow, like, I mean, I've lived in major cities my whole life, so I feel more in tune with what's going on, but you're never fully aware of what's actually going on. Like you're just never going to absorb all of that. So I thought with my privilege and my platform, I'm able to bring people together that wouldn't otherwise be together and hear them communicate their stories through either their music, through their poetry, through their spoken word performances. And that's something that has been really enlightening for me, and I felt really passionate about. And I've hosted some in conversation, panels during Art Basel. And I did a series with the Soho House where we did some panel discussions about body politics, beauty, and gender, and just trying to facilitate conversations that are both educational and inspiring. And in terms of feminism, educating people that, feminist issues are human issues. It's not just about women, it's about everybody, it's about society. So the more and more I can share that message and be really inclusive and inviting, I think the more people are going to, want to be involved, want to ask questions, not feel excluded, or not feel like they can't answer the conversation or ask questions, or even take part in what I'm building, at least with my collective. So I mainly am working with other women, but my main area of interest is including intersectional women, BIPOC artists, LGBTQIA+. So giving those folks a platform, I think, is really important. I'm Jewish and I'm Ashkenazi. So it's very important for me to be like sharing my experiences with others. So I think that, the more we connect, we actually have more in common than we have differences. So I love being able to use art as a way to connect and to educate. And that's why I always talk about how art is activism. Like, as soon as you put pencil to paper, like that is that's action, that's active, that's activism.
Absolutely. You're absolutely right. I mean, I hope you realize how special and important your gift is to the world. I am not an artist. I've always been the one who I wish I was able to draw, if I were able to draw. And I've tried when I was a kid and I just wasn't able to do so. So it's so beautiful to hear, and see your work and see how passionate you are about it. I think it's just absolutely amazing.
Well, you are an activist. You're using your voice. I mean, you're bringing people together through your podcast. I was listening to one of your episodes the other night, and it inspired me. Like, I felt like I wanted to do more, just like listening to your conversation. So you're an artist.
In a different way. I appreciate
Yeah.
it. I appreciate that. So your work is part of a permanent collection with the Leslie-Lohman Museum of Gay and Lesbian Art. How does that feel for you? Have you taken that in, that you actually have a body of work that is permanently embedded and on display in a museum?
Well, I feel very proud because that's an institution that has been around for some time and has been an advocate for artists, for the queer community, and has not always, that community has not always been embraced and is still battling, homophobia, xenophobia, and also just, artists that aren't often put in the forefront, or like artists we see at auction houses or in major museums. So I really love Leslie-Lohman and what that museum has, the culture that they've been able to keep within New York City, and the artists that have cycled through with exhibitions, and just their collection in general is very diverse. So to be part of that collection and to have something that's a little bit like, I was surprised, but they acquired one of my film pieces. And film is something that you don't often think, oh, that's like something you would collect and see in a museum. So like, they're very progressive, they're very forward thinking. And, they've collected some photographs as well. So to be able to see those in a show with people that I admired growing up is just very, very humbling.
Absolutely. That's, you've been able to experience so much. I want to dabble and talk about your film experience a bit here. I know that you have attended many film festivals in the past. Is there a takeaway, an experience that you can share with the audience for those who have never been able to experience that, that you can provide of what you've experienced, that you've gotten from attending a festival?
Well, first of all, I'm a huge film a cinephile is what we call it, but we, for your audience, maybe they don't know what that is. My mom doesn't even know what it is. It's a film buff. We love movies. So I love all movies. Like I remember getting in a weird conversation with a girl once, and we were talking about, I was like, oh my God, have you seen this film? It's the best. It's the best. And it was like a silly rom-com. And she was like, oh, I only see cinema. And I was like, oh, we're not going to be able to be friends because I see everything. No, it was like, I was like, that's a non-negotiable for friendship because I see everything. Like I see serious films, I see funny films. I love reality television. Like I just love it all. But I would say, going to film festivals is really fun. I'm actually seeing a movie tonight, which I'm really excited about. A friend of mine is visiting and we're going to one of those movie theaters where you can like eat and watch a movie. So I was like, oh, I'm so excited. This is going to be the best day. I'm talking to you and I'm going to see a film. And it's been hard because with the pandemic, we haven't been able to go out and have that experience. And if you have seen a movie in New York, our audience is very active. Like they clap, they woo, they're really into the film going experience, at least in Brooklyn. I don't know what it's like, on the Upper East Side, but I do know in Brooklyn, we were very active and participate in, film viewing. But I will say as somebody who's made films and made like, short form sort of vignettes, like I make a lot of vignettes. I do a lot of screen tests. If anybody's familiar with Andy Warhol's screen test, he had a major influence on me when I was a young artist. And I still bring that through my work now. And then I can't remember which year it was now because it's been so long, but I directed a film called Sun in My Mouth, and it was a short film, and I had a screening for it, and then I screened it in a few festivals. And I remember thinking like that piece was just a very meditative piece. It was a short black and white film. It followed one character's journey, and it was like a queer film. And I didn't give much thought to it in terms of I want somebody to feel this. I'm making this for like that kind of reaction. It was more of like how I would execute a project. Like if I was writing poetry, right? Like I just kind of laid it out and said, I want to see this and I want to work with the actor like that. And I want to capture this and that. And it was more like for me than anything, like it was like this, selfish expression, if you will. And when I screened that film, I would have people come up to me after, and there was one person who sticks out in my mind in particular. And the subject of the film is a man. And I had this young man come up to me after I had screened that film and said, and it was like, with like tears in his eyes, and said, I don't know how you were able to capture, like, that's my experience in the world. Like I identify with this main character. And it was such a touching moment. And I thought like, wow, like people are really paying attention. You know what I mean? Because it's like you start with a kernel of an idea of something that you want to express, that you want to put out in the world. And when you're so in the zone, and this is why I tell artists, don't follow trends, just follow your intuition, follow what you're interested in. And I'm telling you, the more unpopular your work is, the more likely it is to come into vogue later on. So, I mean, I was very unpopular for a very long time, and I go in and out of popularity like constantly throughout my career. And then people circle around, and when things become more mainstream, then they discover an old film or an old set of images or some Polaroids, and they go, oh, wow, especially even with like the body positivity stuff. Like I was taking pictures of bodies that people did not want to see a while back. And now that's coming back into style, or not coming back in, coming into style for the first time. So I think, just to circle back on your question about film, I think that, to have made small pieces and coming from my heart, and that they can connect with other people, is just such a, like, it's a gift for me. Like I feel very, very fortunate to be able to make something that can connect with an audience.
Absolutely. What's three tips you can provide to someone who may be watching or listening to us right now that's an artist?
So I am going to quote someone who I love, whose name is Mike Mongo. And he always says, do what you love with who you love and help others. And I feel like those can be broken down into 3 tips.
Absolutely. That was great. What's next? What's next for you?
I recently finished a second collection of poetry. So I have 4 books. The first 2 books I published with Penguin Random House. One was called I Heart Boy, and the other was called I Heart Girl, and sort of survey photography. And those were photography monographs. And then after that, I had published a book of poetry called Pink Privacy. And then I most recently finished my second book of poetry called Golden Throne, spelled THROWN, like Golden Throne. And so that was going to come out this fall, but I pushed it back because I have this project, I Heart Girl, that is having a comeback this year. And it's having a comeback through these decentralized platforms, which people are knowing as NFT platforms. And I have a partnership with Coinbase NFT. And I am the first female photographer to partner with Coinbase. And I'm releasing a collection of these photographs from that book on November 11th. I don't know when this is airing, but it's very, very soon that will be out. And so it's very cool because it's like, this work has existed for a while now, but now it's having this digital renaissance that I couldn't be more happy to have out there and have a completely new audience sort of indoctrinated into what it is I've been doing.
Wow, that's beautiful. Congratulations.
Thank you.
That is wonderful. What do you do for yourself? How do you dive in deep internally so that you're able to stay grounded and be able to give yourself to the world in all these different capacities?
Well, I'm struggling with that right now because I just moved. So to stay grounded has been quite the challenge. Having alone time, I think, is the most important thing I can give to myself when I can give it to myself. I practice transcendental meditation. So I'm a TMer. I meditate as much as I can, but I have been off my game for some time now. And I think that, it's the little things, like if you could just do something kind for yourself or say something kind to yourself, that's been the best way that I've been able to do self-care. I mean, a mask, a long shower, a scream into a pillow. I have a trampoline, like a little mini trampoline out on my deck. So I'll just go out in between meetings and just jump on it, just to bring joy into my body, get my blood flowing and my lymphatic system and send the blood to my brain and, and anything to help me feel grounded, like warm foods, especially going into the winter. And I know this is so cliche, but just breathing, I forget to breathe all the time. So when I feel stressed, I just return to my breath and also return to just my essence. There's always this talk about intuition, but we can't really call on the right answers for whatever it is we're doing in life, unless we can quiet down and ask that inner voice, what do I want? What do I need? And sometimes you're like, I need chocolate. So quiet down the inner voice and find out what you want for dinner.
Yeah. I love it. I love it. Can you finish this sentence for me? I am a
multi-hyphenate artist, apparently.
Ooh, okay. And a master of
learning.
Who can control my own.
Oh, I don't think I'm in control.
I love it. You're saying I can't control anything.
Mm-mm.
Okay.
I am in control of nothing.
I love it. I love that answer. That was great. I would like to wrap with a segment that I call Tell and Tell, which is a play on the word show and tell. What is something that you can tell us about yourself that you have not yet shared with the world, a secret, if you will?
Oh, I am a closet speed cuber. I solve the Rubik's Cube.
Really?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Wow. Wow, that is awesome. Well,
Yeah.
if someone wants to follow you on your journey, how do they go about doing so?
So all of my handles are the same across pretty much every platform. It's at J Yatrofsky. So it's my first initial and my full last name. It's very long, but if you just start to type in JYAT, a picture, a black and white photo of me will probably pop up somewhere. I'm
Thank
on all the platforms.
Thank you so much for being on the show. Your energy is amazing. It's contagious. It's magnetic. It's beautiful. I really appreciate you being on the show. I appreciate what you're doing in this world, the way that you're touching lives. Your impact is amazing. So please keep walking in this journey the way you're doing, as you're doing a magnificent, magnificent job.
Thank you so much. And your energy, you're just like beaming out of the
Oh,
other
thank
side of
you.
the screen. And so I appreciate you,
I
taking
appreciate
the
you
afternoon to
being
chat.
Absolutely. I would love to have you on again. You're absolutely amazing. Again, thank you.
Thanks so much.
Well, that is it for this episode of the Journey Told Show. I'm going to leave you with words that my father would so often say to me, and that's to be the best version of you that you can be. Until next time, folks, let that sizzle in your spirit.